What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerd Out. I am still running short on time. It's been a lot of busy days, I tell you what. So this is also going to be another chapter discussion. I don't really have as much as I wanted to on the updates. I still haven't finished reading Itchy. I still haven't really caught up on the seasonals like I wanted. I actually added some new stuff to seasonals, and they're not even seasonals. I actually just started watching like Link Click. Because I wanted to watch it a while ago and now I'm getting into it. So it's kind of a mess. I'm really hoping to be a bit more situated within the next week. And I also want to start doing some Three Gods No Lion reactions because it is March. And if you don't already know, Three Gods No Lion, March Comes in Like a Lion, is one of my favorite series of all time. Like I literally have it number 2 right behind One Piece. I absolutely love it. So I'm hoping to do some content on that on the main channel in the upcoming days. But today we're here to talk about the One Piece chapter. As always, if you have not come to the latest chapters episodes, please know that there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Look at chapter 1142, The Things I Find Scary. And of course, we are still on the pilgrimage. As I said, Yamato is going to come in and stop Who's Who, hit him with the Raime Hake. With it looks like no hockey. I mean, honestly, this is a cover story. I don't know if it really matters here, but it's just to note because I think even with Ulti, when Yamato used Raime Hake, like when they first encounter each other, there was hockey there. But it's Who's Who. Honestly, I don't think Yamato even needs hockey for this, and it furthers my plans of them teaming up. So I am happy about it. And I mean, I'm guessing Who's Who's the strongest person here. And if Yamato one-shots Who's Who, then no one else matters. So we should be getting out of here. The chapter begins in the Walrus schoolhouse, and we have all the kids pretty much panicking because they see a giant snake. And they refer to it as Jormungandr, or the world serpent, which is another part of Norse mythology. Essentially, it looks almost like a Conjuro drawing. It has that kind of shading and like the overall look. It looks as if someone drew it. And I think based on what we see towards the end of the chapter, it's because of someone's ability, and that's kind of how it portrays it. But it's tearing up everything. It's like biting into the school. And then we have the introduction of more staff, which I think the last chapter, I was thinking about this because I couldn't remember Anj's name, who is Saul's assistant. I could only remember that Anj was like Saul's assistant and that there's Ripley. I couldn't remember anybody else or anything else about the school. So we do have more teachers, more instructors. We have the math teacher, Mr. Breed. We have the principal, Mr. Kiba, and then Anj is the librarian. And I think Wolf is the PE teacher, which we get introduced to a little bit later. But the snake comes in, it's going to attack one of the kids, and then we get Walrus for one coming up. And he's got a hammer that looks very similar to what, I can't remember his name. He was one of Hody Jones's henchmen. They had the same type of hammer where it had like the flat front and the two almost like walrus teeth, or like the hook. He has that same kind of weapon. And he strikes the snake before it can end up harming the child. Now it does look like some blood flies out of the snake. So in that case, I'm wondering if it's more than just a construct, if it actually has some life to it. And while the snake is kind of dazed, we get Saul coming in full speed, comes out from the sky like he's Garp, hockeys up his arm, and then hits the snake with what? Demonic Purification? That's the name of the attack there. And it pretty much KOs the snake. Now, this does remind me of Garp, and I wouldn't be surprised if like Saul, to some extent, has like Garp teachings or Garp techniques. One thing we saw a while back was like there were kind of like factions of Marines. Some would go with Garp, some would go with Sengoku. And I think generally Saul was with Garp most of the time, or at least that's generally the side he was on. We saw him communicate with Sengoku as well, but I think he was kind of like on the Garp Aokiji side. So Saul punches it and the snake is down and the kids are all cheering, everybody's happy. Turns out Kiba, the principal, was one of the former giant pirates, so he would have been sailing with Dory and Broggy at some point. But it seems like he's retired and he's become the principal of the school. Which is cool. It's nice to have someone strong protecting the kids. You love to see it. And as the kids are fanning out, you have Robin who's asking about why there are monsters here. And based on like the description that like I think both Saul and Ripley gave us, the area here is really only where the giants live. When it comes to any of the monsters, that's all underworld stuff. Like occasionally some animals may stray in, but for the most part, there really shouldn't be anything this like aggressive up in the Sun Realm. So everyone's pretty shocked. They go a little bit deeper into the school and then they find Mr. Wolf, who's the PE teacher, and he is messed up. Whoever fought him destroyed him. And I'm guessing he may have run into the God's Knights. I don't think any of the monsters got in here, and based on how the children were acting, at the very least, Gunko was in here. So I think he did encounter the God's Knights at some point. Now, it doesn't seem like he was aware of that, but he mentions that basically all the kids just started walking off. Like they just left, they wouldn't listen, walked out. And Saul starts heading towards that area. And a really weird part of dialogue is Mr. Wolf says the children don't touch them. And at first I was like, does he think Saul's going to go out there and hurt the kids? Because that doesn't seem like something Saul would do. But it kind of dawned on me that he could be saying don't touch them because that's how basically their condition gets spread. And what you'll see in the chapter is that basically the kids who are walking out are all asleep, almost as if they're like sleepwalking. And they have the Gunko arrow kind of directing them. So it feels like someone put them to sleep and then Gunko used the arrow to kind of guide them in a direction. And so what could be the case here is that if you touch someone who's affected by that sleep, by that power, you end up asleep as well. And it seems like regardless of what they do, they're not waking up. You just see like the line of kids walking out, all knocked out. And like I said, you see Gunko's arrow, so they're being directed a certain way. And because of that, Kiba goes ahead and says we should sound the alarm. We gotta alert the whole country. Something's going crazy. Now, Saul says that's overkill, but they have no reason to believe it's overkill when there was one, a giant snake monster that almost attacked the kids. Two, all the kids are being led out and you can't wake them up. You can't stop them. You can't call to them. Mr. Wolf got mopped. Like clearly something is going wrong. And even Kiba's like, Saul, it's crazy. And he directs Saul to the forest, in which we see that there are more monsters out there. And we'll get to see those monsters in a bit more detail later. I believe one of those is Fenrir, but I don't know necessarily what the other bird is. But back inside, the other kids are starting to pass out. And now it doesn't look the same way the kids who are asleep and walking out do, because they seem to be at least peacefully asleep. These kids seem like they're just being knocked out. And initially I thought about like maybe Conqueror's hockey, but I think that would be a bit more like broadcast. We would see that. So this may just be the beginning stages of whatever ability affected the rest of the kids. Now Chopper has to be put down because he wants to examine the kids. I think this may lead to Chopper being affected by the sleep power as well. I feel like we're going to end up going somewhere with that plot point where we could have Chopper end up lined up with the kids if they get taken, and that gives us more incentive to go rescue them. But it's still up in the air on how the God's Knights are actually planning this. Now we do a quick cutaway and go to the underworld, Land of the Dead. We back to Loki. And Loki starts talking. Basically, he's like, okay, you kept one shackle on me. That's not enough. I still have enough strength to fight. Now, I would say it's somewhat of a lie because Loki then asked them to remove the last shackle. So it's like he has enough power to fight and do damage. That shackle is still holding him down and he can't remove it himself. So to some degree, that shackle is putting it work. But I think his point is to say that he's not at 0%. You know, he may not be at 100. He's not at 0. And then he says, basically, hurry up and get the shackles off because when I strike something, flames will rage. And he mentions that, you know, it's Elbaf's greatest weakness, which we got the chapter prior, which we knew would be a plot point immediately. And it comes into play now because Loki swings his hammer, which I believe has some hockey leaking off of it. We see like the black sparks, and he slams it into the tree. And initially there's like this huge flash of light, like that you can kind of see shades the characters. But then a huge bolt of lightning strikes down. And the sheer scale of that lightning is insane. Because in the panel where you see it coming down, you can see the castle that Luffy and Nami and the rest of the crew were in, that Road had them in. You see it on there. The lightning strike is bigger than that castle. And immediately after the strike, the tree starts, bursting into flames. So now we have a giant fire on our hands at the base of Elbaf. And I believe the blaze is so big that they're able to see it in the tavern, and they immediately warn Jarl. And they're already kind of like in a tizzy because they heard the horn sounded earlier. So everyone's kind of like already moving around, and now they see this giant fire. So basically it's just chaos. It's just chaos. And then we cut back to Walrus School and we get an update from Anj, which is that basically all the monsters that they're seeing, the kids mentioned earlier. And we get a little bit of flashback of the kids, and they start describing things about, who's going to destroy the world. One kid says it's Loki. The other kid says it's Nika. And then someone else is like, no, it's Fenrir. And they're kind of just describing like what they think would be the most terrifying monster. And some of the other kids chime in. Someone said it's Ghost, Draugr, a Storm, Nidhogg, Jormungandr. So they're naming off. Some of these are more generic monsters. Some of these are like named mythology monsters. Like you have Jormungandr, you have Nidhogg, but then you have like a Storm, you have Draugr. So like it's a mix of both. And essentially what happened there is that the monsters that these kids kind of talked about fearing all came to be. Because if you look in the last panel, you can basically see every monster. You see Loki, you see Nika, you see Fenrir, you see ghosts, you see Draugr, you see a Storm. You even see some extra monsters that weren't exactly named. But also they are the depictions of kind of how the kids thought of them. So it's not like these monsters spawned and they look like they're their actual self. They look like the versions that the kids drew. And they're all massive. Like none of them are small to any degree. I think the smallest thing in the panel might be like the ghosts or the Storm. And that's just because of like the Storm is just a cloud and the ghosts are really thin. These things are huge. These things are monstrous. And then we get a cutaway to the Gods Knights. And we have Killingham saying that should do it, and he immediately falls asleep. Which makes me think that Killingham has the ability that's putting the kids to sleep. I think that's his power. And then they tell him good work. And then we have Gunko. We have Summers. I don't see Shamrock. It's very possible that Shamrock has left or is in a different area. It doesn't seem like he's here right now. But we get some interesting dialogue from Summer because it seems like he's asking Gunko what scares her the most. And because of that, it makes me think that the apparitions of all of these fears is Summer's power. So you have Killingham, who has the power to put people to sleep. You have Summers, who has the power to manifest other people's fears. You have Gunko with the arrow, and they're using all of their powers combined to get the kids out of there. We saw all of those working in tandem, and this is kind of what Shamrock was talking about with like, now that you're all here, we can use your powers to make this a game. I think this is the game they're referring to. Also, interesting note is that Gunko mentions that Nika is the thing that scares her the most. And it makes me wonder what type of stories that Emu or the higher ups have passed down about Nika to the Gods Knights, because I imagine it's conditioning. I imagine that Gunko only knows about Nika from what Gunko was told, and if it's from like the story of the Gods Knights or Emu, it's going to be in a bad light. Whereas people of Elbaf praise Nika, so like obviously it's not necessarily based off of lore, it's based off of what Gunko knows about Nika. I would like to get more on that. because I feel like Gunko is probably one of the newer God's Knights of them all. So if anything, she's the easiest to be conditioned into believing that Nika is absolutely bad no matter what. Which would explain why Nika scares her the most. Overall, a good chapter. Seems like we're going to be on break next week, so the cast will probably be on break next week. I expect to come back from that and we'll have more content. We'll actually have the full episodes, we'll have the seasonals and stuff, because we'll have 2 weeks here, and I think I'll be a bit less busy in the upcoming week. But that was a good chapter. It set up a lot of stuff. It's getting really chaotic. I would love to see where Shamrock went and all this. I think Killingham might be my favorite of the God's Knights so far, followed by Gunko. We'll see. I like Killingham's design. I like the way his personality is right now. And if his power is the sleep thing, that seems cool too. So far, I'm liking his aesthetic. I'm feeling it. Summers is and Shamrock is Mostly it's Gunko and Killing. And that is the chapter. There really isn't a whole lot to talk about, like discussion wise. Obviously things are going crazy here. I'd say the biggest thing, maybe it's a matchup between the biggest things, because I think that Loki being able to summon lightning with his swings is insane. And it's a very much call to Thor, where he's using a giant hammer to basically summon lightning. But it seems a little bit, it's like Thor adjacent, inspired by Thor, because there's definitely some differences in how this is operating. So it's between Loki using his ability. I don't think this is his Delfruit ability, to be honest. It might just be an ability of the weapon itself, because I wouldn't expect his Devil Fruit to necessarily work while he's still shackled. He did say that he's not at 0%, so maybe he can still muster up some power. I don't know, we'll have to see. But it's between that and between the God's Knights and their powers. Whoever's the fear creation power is very interesting. Like I said, I think that's summer, so I'd like to see more on that. That's going to wrap up the episode. Solid chapter. We are on break, so we'll have some time to catch up. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.